और ये सर की दूसरी क्लास है करंट अफेयर की। और सर हमारे ग्रुप मॉक पैनल को हमारे चेयर करते हैं, और 1-to-1 भी बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट से सर ने डिस्कस किया है। तो मैं माननीय प्रसन्न कुमार सर से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि कृपया अपना सेशन आप स्टार्ट करें, और स्टूडेंट्स जो भी हैं, आपके जो भी डाउट होगा आप सारे डाउट क्लियर करके पूछ के आप यहाँ से जाएंगे। श्री प्रसन्न कुमार सर।
Dhanyavad, Rajuji. And I'll be speaking in English because I know that there may be participants from different parts of the country. So I will be talking only in English, but in case you have any question you want to ask in Hindi, no problem, you can do that. But I will be answering in English only. Okay. And I will also tell you the format of my presentation. I have the slides before me. That will be, the slideshow will be shown. And I may not read the entire thing, but of course, since my memory is not that sharp now, so I may have to look at this screen while speaking. But simultaneously, I will request all of you also to read the slides. That will help you. And I have shortlisted 8 topics, but my experience tells me that it will not be possible to cover more than 4 or 5 topics during the 2 or a little more than 2 hours available to us. So I will show you the first slide where the 8 topics are listed. Now, the first 3 topics I will be covering in any case. Well, the first one is India versus Bharat is not because it is a very hotly debated topic, but I am using that topic to give you an idea about how questions will come in the UPSC interview. The purpose of showing these questions also to you is that whatever topic you read, whatever topic you prepare, please start asking as many questions as you can. Put yourself in the shoes of the UPSC panel and start asking questions to yourself. On this topic, what all questions can come in the UPSC interview? There may be 100 questions, but naturally all of them will not be asked. But unless you ask all those 100 questions, your preparation may not be complete. So when you appear before the UPSC panel, any of those 100 questions can be asked. So unless you prepare all the 100, you may not be able to answer 2 or 3 questions which may appear, which may come in the interview. So that is the purpose for which I have given this. It's something like a demonstration of how questions are framed. That I'll start with that. Then since minimum support price and electoral bonds are very, very current topics, and many of you must be appearing before the interview in a few days' time, I'm going to cover those two. In fact, we can have a fairly long discussion on both these topics. And out of the remaining 5 topics, you can tell me which one you would like to discuss, because we may not get time to discuss all the 5. So you can use your chat box, and we can have an online voting on these 5 topics. Whichever you wish me to cover, take at the after I cover the first 3 topics. Now I'll start with India versus Bharat. I will not take much time on that. As I mentioned, the only purpose is to demonstrate how questions are asked. Just we'll go through the background quickly. all of you are familiar with the background. In fact, I know that since you are all preparing for the civil service interview, you are much more knowledgeable than I am. The background of each issue would be very, very clear to all of you. My only intervention here would be to tell you how questions can come on that topic. Many of the questions which I will be asking, you may know the answer better than I know. So even during the discussion which we will have on each topic, don't expect me. You can put it in the chat box. I will go through the chat box later on. Please don't expect me to answer every question you may have in your mind. So there I will request some of you, the participants themselves, to help me in finding the answers. In fact, you can yourself answer the questions. That will be a much better way of having a good discussion rather than depending entirely on me. Of course, with my experience, I will be able to contribute quite a lot. So, you know that in the preamble of our constitution, we have India, we the people of India mentioned there, and in the Hindi version, it is Bharat Arthat India Rajyon ka Sangh hoga. That is what is mentioned in the Constitution of India. And there have been many names in the of Bharat in the past, in our history, in our Puranas. All of you are familiar with them. And how we came to be known as India, the history behind it is mentioned here. When the Persians were among the first Europeans, first foreigners to come here. Of course, the Arabs are also come. Please keep all your mics muted. Please don't talk in between. That will disturb the entire process. When the Persians came, since they had to cross the river Sindhu, which they called Indus, and their region beyond Sindhu, they called it Hindustan or Hind. Later on, when the name reached Europe, because that time, as you know, our relations in Europe were mostly with the Greek, Alexander onwards, and the Greek had called it Ind, I-N-D, Ind, because the letter H, that's aspirate sound, is missing in the Greek language. It is silent. So, and Ind later evolved into India. This is how we came to be known as India. It is practically a Europeanized version of Hind or Hindustan. But the name Bharat was there much before Persians came to us, and that is the reason why the name Bharat was also advocated by many people at the time of the framing of the constitution. And as there was a hot debate on the subject, but ultimately Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar ji, he gave a compromise formula saying that we will call ourselves India, that is Bharat. That is how the preamble was adopted, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. Now, the type of questions which can come. I'll also like to tell you that in UPSC, they would prefer a discussion rather than a question-answer session. And my experience, the feedback which I got from many candidates of SAMKALP, those who have, your predecessors who have appeared in our IGP, the general feedback is that if it becomes a good discussion, you are likely to get more marks. But if you make your interview a mere question-answer session, you may not get good marks. And that is one reason. There are some candidates even told me that they have answered every question asked in the UPSC board, but they got low marks. The reason is very simple, that it was a question answer session, not a discussion. So please try to make it a discussion. That is why I am requesting you again and again that you must think of as many questions as possible. The type of sample questions which on India versus Bharat I have mentioned here. You can go through the list. I'm not reading it. You can go through the list, and now after that, if you want to ask me any question right now on this topic, please feel free to ask the questions. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. A few questions we can cover. In fact, we will like to have a discussion on this. In case that means the others can also participate. And don't expect me to answer every question.
Sir, this fourth question, should we change the name to Bharat in English also?
Yes, now let me tell you that I don't have answers to all these questions. I have framed these questions, but that doesn't mean that I will be able to guide you. You please think about it. You are all very intelligent persons. You have been selected for the UPSC interview. That means you have very good knowledge. So there is no right and wrong answers to this type of questions. It's your view which matters, how you look at it, and the thought process behind your answer. That is what UPSC would be looking at. You are not going to get marks for your marks, for your answers. You will get marks for the thinking behind it. So please think about whatever is your answer. Please come up with a logical reasoning. Why I think that it should be named, it should be referred to as Bharat in English also, or if you don't agree with that, that's also correct. Both answers are correct. Yes or no, both answers are correct. But how you explain that answer, that is what is going to give you marks. Okay. So you can, if you want to discuss it, you can do that right now. Why, whatever is your view. We'll spend a few minutes on this.
Namaste, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I am speaking that sir, India and Bharat is both the constitutionally accepted words. So, sir, we can use them interchangeably. Sir, this is my opinion.
Very correct. Very correct. So that answer should be fortified with logic. That's your thing.
So we can keep it Bharat in English also, because choosing India and not Hindustan, it means we are somewhere choosing the Greek interpretation and not the Arab interpretation. So let us have our own.
There is no Arab interpretation.
No, sir. Hindustan, like they could not pronounce Hind.
Okay.
Arab scholars
Hindustan. Okay, Hindustan and India. Okay, right. Now, there are other reasons also. I'll just share with you. There are other reasons also why we should retain India for some more time at least. That is, all the legal documents mention India. Our Indian documents within India and even our international agreements and all that, all these mention India. So immediately, if you switch over to Bharat, that can create problems. But that does not mean that we cannot do it. The other countries, I have mentioned the name of the other countries where the change of name has taken place. They are also in the like in Turkey, for example. Everybody still calls it Turkey, though they have changed it to Turkey, but people may still calling it Turkey. So a transition stage will be there for several years where both the names may have to be used. And the other reason is that the ocean by our side, by the name of, it is called Indian Ocean. Should we change that also, that India, that ocean got its name from the name of our country. So if we change it to Bharat, will it, because in Hindi it is called Hind Mahasagar. It is not called
Yes.
Bharati Mahasagar. The Bharat word is not used there. Now, these are some of the ideas you must think about. Just
Okay, sir.
ponder about these things, and then come up with a very good argument.
Okay, sir.
I'll give you another reason why we should not leave the name India. That suppose if we, this is just a hypothetical reasoning I am giving you.
Pakistan may take it, sir.
Yes, that's it. Pakistan might stake a claim for the name of Indus. So,
Yes.
okay, these are the ways in which you can answer such questions. I'm not giving you the answer. I will never give answers to this type of questions. You can think about them.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Should we continue or shall we move to the other topics, because time is very important?
Sir,
Yes.
so just question number 8. Is India only a geographical construct while Bharat is a cultural identity?
Okay, give me the answer.
Sir, I think as our civilization has progressed, it is recognized by the name Bharat, and the India is being used only when the colonial comes to India. So, considering the overall cultural heritage of India, it is more recognized with Bharat only.
Yes, that is the reason why the present government and our Prime Minister also started referring it to as Bharat, because Bharat somehow gives us the impression that we have a very long heritage. It's an ancient heritage and India does not have that kind of a heritage. Okay. Anything more? Okay, then let me go to minimum support price. This is a topic which those of you who are going to appear at least in the month of February are likely to get questions about it. I'm not going to discuss the farmers' agitation which is going on now. I'm not discussing that. My objective of including minimum support price in this presentation is to give you some background information which will throw a light not only on minimum support price, but on the agricultural scenario in the country as a whole. Everything, when you take part in a discussion on minimum support price or any other related topic, if you have the background information, that will definitely help you. So when we go through the background information, you will understand why they are important. So I am going to give a number of slides. Please go through each slide carefully, then we can have a discussion on it. The procedure for minimum support price is that the Commission on Agricultural Cost and Prices, CSEP, they, after considering several factors, if you go to the website of CSEP, you will get a list of all those. I have already I mentioned it in the second bullet point. In addition, there are more points which CSEP will consider, and in some literature, some news items, you will see 23 crops, and some you will see 24. CSEP website lists 24 crops. That's why I mentioned here. And some sites you may see only 23, because they are not included coconut. Probably they have combined copra and coconut, they have counted it as one, but there are two different items in the CSEP. That is why it is 24. Then you also know about A2, A2 plus FL and C2. I don't think I have to explain, unless you want an explanation. I don't want to spend time explaining what is A2, what is A2 plus FL, and what is C2. I assume that you are already quite knowledgeable about it. Now, you should also have some basic idea about Swaminathan Commission, that is the National Commission of Farmers. And they had suggested that it should be 50% more than the weighted average COP, that is cost of production. But there, if you go through the Swaminathan Commission recommendations, it is very clear that they meant cost of production as C2, not A2. But then Government of India had a problem in computing C2, because C2 also includes the rent paid for leased in land. That varies from state to state, region to region. So Government of India found it, CSEP also found it difficult to compute C2. And of course, there's only a marginal difference between A2 and C2, A2 plus FL and C2. And therefore, considering that the rent paid for leased in land is only a notional cost, Government of India decided that they will go by A2 plus FL plus 50%. And that is the formula which is at present employed, recommended by CSEP and approved by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, which finally announces the minimum support price. And you can see at the last bullet point, you will see that A2 plus FL for wheat for the 2024, that is the current season, 2024-25 season, the coming season is 1128 per quintal. C2 is 1652 per quintal. That's a difference of around 500 rupees. C2 plus 50% will come to 2478. But the MSP was announced on the basis of A2 plus FL and CSEP's recommendation, and that comes to 2275. The difference is only 200 rupees. So there, that way, you can see that the Government of India has been very, very considerate in fixing the MSP, taken into consideration various factors. I will quickly go through the others. Please read this remaining slides yourself, and I may go through some of the important items on the screen, but otherwise I will expect you to read it. We are now see, MSP, when MSP was introduced in the beginning, India was not a surplus country. We were deficit in food products. Food security was not to the extent desirable. But after that, we became a surplus country in the case of many of the crops, and we are now exporting some of the commodities, including wheat and basmati rice. We are exporting them, and there are other commodities also we are exporting, and exports have been growing even as a percentage of domestic production. This implies that domestic production has been growing at a faster rate than domestic demand. So what does this mean? That if the domestic demand is not to the extent of the production of various crops, either we have to export them or we will have to store them for a long period. Of course, we do have the concept of a buffer stock, but then our stocking capacity is quite limited. And even if we stock the excess, the surplus quantity of crops, there is a possibility that they might rot, which is happening in the FCI godowns. So it is better that we export these products. But then there is another problem there, that the export market is not as good as the MSP. MSP is higher than the international market prices. So that also creates some kind of an imbalance. Rashapit, please read it, and then after some time I'll change it.
Sir,
Yes, please.
Sir, I have a doubt. Like, I have read the report, the recommendation of Dr. Gulati, and he mentioned that the international prices are considerably high, and the government should liberalize the export market so that the farmers are able to realize their true value of their product.
Yes, we are coming to that also, that aspect also. That we are coming to that. Now, that is where this last line, if you see, price deficiency payment is a better option than procurement. Some of the other slides also mentions this thing, that since we may not be able to export all our products, all our surplus, so we may have to store some of them. The main idea is that we should give remunerative price to the farmer. That is very important. There is no dispute about that. Every government, every political party is interested that the farmers should get remunerative prices. So in case the international prices are higher than MSP, naturally the farmers should be very happy to export the product. In fact, they themselves can get into the international market and sell them. I will come to that a little later, that how that can be implemented. But the problem is that right now we don't have an enabling mechanism for farmers to directly deal with the international markets. And that is the reason why the 3 farm laws were legislated in 2020. We will come to that a little later, and then it will be more clear to all of you. Now, since the storage capacity is limited and there is a possibility that the grains can rot in the godowns, it is not advisable to use procurement as a means of giving remunerative prices. MSP is good, but procurement, it may not be a good answer to the farmer's requirement. That is where the price deficiency payment and the last line, that comes into, that is advocated by many people. Even Niti Aayog has recommended that we should consider price deficiency payment. That is, if the market price is less than MSP, the farmer should get at least the MSP. That is a consideration, because it is called a minimum support price. So any price less than minimum support price is just not acceptable, because it is minimum. You can't go below the minimum. In case government is not able to procure the entire quantity which is offered by the farmer, then the option available to the government is that the difference between market price and MSP will be paid by the government directly to the account of the farmer, not through the intermediaries. This particular argument will be important when we consider the farmers' agitation. The farmers, the people who are agitating, they are more interested in continuing the MSP regime and procurement regime, because the procurement takes place through the intermediaries. And you know that it is the farmers of Punjab and Haryana who are agitating, not the farmers of the entire country. The reason why they are agitating is that they benefit by the present system of the commission agents, where there are several intermediaries, not one intermediary, more than one intermediary would be there, and they all benefit from this system. And it may not be surprising if you go into the details of the farmers' agitation, you might find the commission agents behind it, because they are interested in perpetuating that system. And when the 3 farm laws were enacted, they found that it is going to threaten their existence. We'll come to that a little later, then I will explain it. Unless you have any question, I will not touch it right now. I will come to that when we discuss the 3 farm laws. Okay, and price deficiency payment will not violate the WTO requirements. There are certain type of compliance which is expected from every WTO member country, and India is also part of the WTO agreement. So anything, suppose if we go by a regime of subsidies, that can be objected to by the WTO and the other members of WTO. But price deficiency payment is not considered a violation of WTO. So it's a better way of subsidizing the farmers. Most of it, this I have already covered. Please go through it. This partly answers the question which was already raised, that farmers need to have access to the best market available. Whether it is global market or domestic market, the farmers should get access to it. But right now, we have the ENAM. I'm sure you are familiar with the ENAM, but practically it is not being used by the small farmers. The big farmers definitely can use it. Farmers who are technologically enabled, they may be able to use the e-commerce platforms, but many of the farmers who may not have access to technology, they are deprived of this facility. There are many other technologies which are available right now, not only for improving the cost production, but also for storage and marketing. But many of these facilities are right now not available to the farmers of India. Shall I move to the next slide?
Sir, there are question marks regarding implementation of the price deficiency payment scheme, where so sir, how will we implement that in a way so that the government does not suffer a loss and people do not?
There is no question of suffering a loss, because when government says this is the minimum support price, that means it becomes a right of the farmer. A farmer who wants to sell his product is assured of that price. This is a guarantee from the government, because that is why government calls it minimum support price. So if the farmer is not able to get MSP and the government is not able to procure that product, then the farmer should be free to sell the product in the market at the market price. And the difference between the market price and the MSP will be compensated to the farmer by direct payment to his account. This is being done also. Madhya Pradesh and Haryana have already started doing it. It can be done on an all-India basis. We have technology available for that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, we are going to the next slide. Okay, this is a very interesting statistics. That is, there is an imbalance between demand and supply. The farmers are tempted to produce the MSP crops more than the non-MSP products. The non-MSP products may be, there may be a much higher demand for those products, but because of the MSP available to certain products, the farmers are tempted to cultivate those crops. And we need not have the food requirement, our food security. Of course, there is a guarantee by the government, but we may not need more wheat and rice or other food grains right now. And there is a very good scope of shifting at least 2% area each year from conventional farming to organic farming. And also not only for organic farming, but for cultivation of fruits and vegetables also. There is a very good scope for that, doing that. And that in without compromising on food security. But for this target to be achieved, government alone cannot do it. Because machinery available with the government may not be adequate to meet the requirement, especially of investment. We will need investment in technology, R&D. We will also need investment in storage facilities, cold storages and other godowns. We may also need more investment in the marketing network. All this may not be possible for the government to do. Therefore, it is important that the private sector and even the foreign companies should be allowed to operate in this sector. And that is possible only if agricultural sector is further liberalized. And you are all familiar with the history of liberalization in India. 1991, when liberalization started, agriculture was not among the sectors which were liberalized. In fact, agriculture was the only sector which was not liberalized. All other sectors benefited from the globalization and liberalization, but agriculture did not benefit to the extent required. So now a time has come for agriculture also to be liberalized and globalized. Shall we move to the next slide? Okay. Okay, this is a further explanation of what I have already mentioned. This is the last slide on MSP. Now I will move to some other area. Now, there's another problem which is highlighted here in the second bullet point, that as far as the rich farmers are concerned, the farmers with large holdings, they don't have much problem in any case. The problem is essentially of the small farmers, because they cannot hold on to their products, number one. Number two, they don't have access to the storage facilities. They cannot take a few kilograms of their products and take it to the godown. That is not possible for them. And they cannot sell it in the international market or the ENAM. It is not possible for them because the quantity is very low. The economies of scale, they will not be able to avail. That is where cooperatives and farmer producer organizations, FPOs, are required. And not only that, many startups have already come, but we will need many more agri startups, which will bring in not only the infrastructure, but will also bring new knowledge and new technology. The third slide is about something which IAS officers are dealing on a day-to-day basis, that is the tenancy laws. Our tenancy laws are highly, I would say that not agricultural production oriented. They don't encourage production, because there is tenancy laws have been framed in such a way, in spite of many changes after independence, we still do not help the landowners to lease out land to the tenants, because they are afraid of leasing out, because the tenancy laws are highly favorable to the tenants and not to the detriment of the landowners. So many landowners are hesitant to lease out their land for a long period to a real farmer, to a real cultivator. And that also affects the the yield of the crops, because the owners themselves may not be good farmers. Okay, now we'll move to the to summarize what I have already mentioned, some of the challenges in implementation of MSP, and also in what way the present farmers' agitation has put the government in a fix. Government is not able to meet the requirements, meet the demands of the farmers. The reason why it is not able to do so, some of the points I have mentioned here, that the MSP is not uniform all over the country. There are regional variations, that is one. Number two, public procurement at MSP is disproportionately focused on wheat and rice. In fact, only wheat and rice are procured at MSP. The other products, practically, because of the absence of storage facilities and because of the absence of the market mechanism, government is not procuring most of the products. Some of the oil seeds and all that, to some extent, some procurement may be taking place, but it is disproportionately focused on wheat and rice. And that is the reason why farmers of one particular region are concerned about it and not the others, because there are, in many states, there is no procurement at all. And naturally, those farmers will not be interested in continuing with the present agitation. Another interesting point here is that in spite of the MSP regime, in spite of the government guaranteeing MSP, the growth in rice and wheat, and there are some other products like sugarcane and cotton, where MSP regime is practically followed, their growth rate is much less compared to the so-called cash crops and coarse cereals. 1.39% was the growth in the case of the MSP, the products where MSP regime is implemented. But for fruits and vegetables, you see, it is 3.47%. That means MSP does not guarantee proper returns to the farmer. The farmer is looking for better opportunities, and better opportunities are available to the farmers. Farmers who are going for horticultural crops, they get much better remuneration. They are not dependent on MSP at all. So MSP alone is not a panacea for all the problems faced by the farmers. Crop diversification is a much better option available. That you already discussed in another slide. And the demand from the consumers. Now, if you look at the news reports about the farmers' agitation, you will see that the consumer is not in the picture at all. The problems of the consumer, that is also to be, because after all, including the farmers themselves, everybody is a consumer. And if the consumers' requirements are not met, naturally, the government cannot take any decision. Government has to keep in mind the requirement of the consumers also. Shall I move to the next slide? Okay, I'm sure you are faster in reading. Your speed of reading is much better than mine. So I have finished reading it. So I'll go to the next slide. Okay, now look at the challenges of doubling farmers' income. This slide is entirely taken from the Niti Aayog's website. You can also go through the Niti Aayog website. You will get the details of this. See, now, if you look at the farmers' agitation, the history of farmers' agitation, you will find that the problem had started sometime in the early 90s, immediately after the liberalization and globalization started in our country, but it became much more acute, much more popular in our country around 2000. And that was the time when there was a big hue and cry about the APMC, the Agricultural Product Market Committee's system, which is prevalent in many parts of the country. Not all states have APMC system, but APMC system, I already touched upon it. It also is not free from the grip of the commission agents. APMC minus commission agent might have worked, but it does not work. So therefore, there was a big demand for scrapping the APMC regime. And APMC Act itself to be replaced, shelved. This requirement was there, and that time also it was the NDA government in the early 2000. So they came up with a model APMC Act, which will to a large extent save the farmers from the grip of the commission agents. But then the commission agents have they are very good in lobbying, they have very good political power, and they didn't allow the model act to come into force. None of the states implemented the model act. But you will find this in the election manifesto of not only the ruling party, but the opposition party also. Everybody is agreed that the APMC is not a good system, that it needs reforms. The present APMC needs urgent reforms. Everybody is agreed on that. In fact, it was during the previous government's time, that is UPA government's time, that the three farm laws, the discussions on them took place. A lot of consultation had taken place on implementation of the new laws. But it was the NDA government which actually came up with the enactment. But both the parties are equally responsible for these three laws. Imbalance between domestic demand and supply, we already discussed it, and this is just a summary of what we have discussed. And there is need for improving export competitiveness. Without violating the WTO requirements, we should be able to compete in the export market, the farmer should have access to the export market also. And market liberalization, the farmers should get remunerative prices. There is no debate on that. But how that is going to be implemented, how we can ensure remunerative prices to farmers, that requires market liberalization. And that is something which is not being allowed. Small holdings, we have already discussed. Fragmented market, because market cannot be a national market, a one market for the whole country, unless we have good storage and warehousing facilities and also transportation facilities. If storage and warehousing comes, then transportation facilities will also automatically come. That should not be a problem at all. But storage and warehousing, that needs a lot of investment that has not happened as much as we would have required. Then investment in agri-processing. Now, here there is a need for contract farming, because I already mentioned that the small farmers may not be comfortable in selling their products to, they may not be like to take it to a warehouse and sell it. They cannot sell it. So they need an assured market. The market can be assured only by the processor, the food processor, the agricultural processor. Now, agricultural product processor will need a certain kind of certain quality of raw material, because they cannot mix different types of materials. So they will decide what products are acceptable to that company. So the farmer has to cater to the requirement of the processing company. And that is possible only through an agreement between the producer and the processor. And right now, we don't have a system. We do have contract farming even now, but it is highly skewed in favor of the processor, not in favor of the farmer. One of the laws, the 3 farm laws, we will deal with that in the next slide, that was meant to protect the farmer when he enters into a contract with the processor. But that was also not allowed. Then barrier-free interstate trade is required if we need to have a single market for crops in our country. Then modernization of agricultural needs investment, I already talked about it. Then lastly, MSP and procurement is not a viable option, but price deficiency payment and free market, these are the better options. Price deficiency payment, I have already discussed. Free market, ultimately what should happen, that all of you have studied economics, anybody who knows economics would know that the free market mechanism should determine what should be the product mix, what should be the price. And it is better that we allow the free market enterprise to take over the agricultural marketing, and that is the only way in which farmers can get assured prices, and they can also take the correct decisions about the product mix. Before going to the 3 formulas, we'll also highlight the restrictions created by the APMC. If you are familiar with the APMC concept, you don't need this slide, but if you are not familiar with the APMCs, please go through it. Because this is something like an exploitation of the farmers. The farmers cannot sell except through the APMC. They don't have another option available. Even if they sell it outside the APMC, they have to pay the market fee to the APMC. It is like somebody driving on the expressway, that he wants to take a different route. He does not want to pay the toll in the expressway, He says, okay, I won't mind taking a little more time. Let me go through the old road, which is not, it's a toll-free road. No, but then the highway authority say, no, whether you take this road or the highway, you have to pay the toll. This is similar to that. Whether you sell it through APMC or whether you sell it directly to the consumer or to the processor, you have to pay the market fee. This is in a nutshell what APMC means. And there are several layers of middlemen involved. The commission agent may have a sub-agent and so on. Okay. Now, to overcome all these problems, the government, as I already mentioned, it is not this government which brought it. It was brought by both the governments together. It was initiated by the previous government. In fact, it was initiated by the Vajpayee government. It was continued by the Manmohan Singh Sarkar. They were also discussing it. In fact, the main advocate of farm laws at that time was Mr. Sharad Pawar, who was the agriculture minister, but now he is opposing it. To deal with all the issues we have so far discussed, these three laws were enacted. The Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020 was enacted to give an alternative to the farmers, because this was to meet the demand for scrapping the APMCs. But this, in fact, please don't talk in between. Please don't talk in between. No, please keep yourself muted. Please, you are disturbing us. So the demand from the previous government was to do away with the APMC system completely, but the present government thought that APMCs can also continue, at least for the time being, but the farmers should have an option to sell their product outside the APMC market. So this law was enacted. The second law, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Act 2020 was enacted to protect the farmers in the event of his coming to entering into a contract with the processors. To protect the interests of the farmer, this was enacted. And the third one, Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020, there was a long pending demand that the Essential Commodities Act was extended to many agricultural products at a time when India was a deficit country. Many of these products needed protection, and they had to be brought under Essential Commodities Act so that their hoarding could be stopped and action to be taken against the hoarders. But now the situation is that all these products are in surplus and there is no need for continuing the Essential Commodities Act applicable to most of these products, except in some emergency situations. So the Amendment Act took care of that the products like cereals, pulses, oil seeds, edible oils, onion and potatoes would be taken out from the list of essential commodities. But in case a government intervention is needed at any time, there was a facility for that. Okay, now we can have a discussion on this subject. Any questions?
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
So there is one question. On the previous slide, it was mentioned that
Yes. Sorry, I can't hear you. Hello?
I think he got disconnected, sir.
Okay. Okay, anybody else?
Sir, I want to ask one question.
Yes.
Like, how can we convince the farmers for this essential commodities amendment act? That because do not want the private sector to come here.
Yes, you're right. You're right. In fact, that is one. See, private sector, there has been exploitation of the farmers by the private sector. There's no doubt about that. But then government needs some enabling provisions also. Then in fact the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement, that second act, that takes care of the protection that in fact was meant for protecting the farmers against the exploitation by the private parties. So that can be implemented, but at the same time, it is important that the consumers, we are all consumers also, our interest also need to be protected. We deserve to get the products at a reasonable price, and that is not possible unless there is proper storage and transportation facility, and also processing facility. The farmers can get remunerative prices only if the processing facilities are enhanced. And who will come up with the processing facilities? Government will not do it. There is a limit to which government can bring about the processing facilities. Most of the processing facilities have to be in private sector. But government has to protect the interest of the farmers who are going to enter into a contract with the processors. And that law was also enacted, but it was not allowed because they came up with anecdotal evidence saying that farmers are being exploited. To a large extent, it is correct also, but then unless the government has the enabling provisions to deal with such exploitation, how will the government protect the farmers?
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, should the government first start supporting farmers so that they can get loans at subsidized rates to set up storage infrastructure in cooperative mode, and once they are empowered, they will themselves want to enter into contracts and push for more liberalization. Is that a better choice, sir, considering there's a lot of mistrust of the private sector?
Definitely, and the dairy sector has already shown us the way. The dairy
Yes,
sector, this is an example we are all seeing every day. And if dairy sector can do it, naturally the other sectors can also do it. But
yes,
but then who will bring all the farmers into a cooperative mode? Right now, what is happening that the farmers who are benefited by the APFC system, they are quite united. The other farmers are in large, they are distributed all over the country, and their voice is not heard. They are not able to come on a common platform. So it is of course a job which for the civil servants, but civil servants' role is very limited. We need a person like Dr. Varghese Kurian or somebody like that to bring the farmers and together and create good cooperative societies. The other option which the government had given to the farmers is the farmer producer organizations. These are practically government sponsored organizations. Cooperative societies are initiative by the farmers, but FPOs, the government has a facilitating provision for that. The FPOs can be created by the farmers with the help of the government, and they can also deal with marketing.
Okay. Sir, with more privatization, but would there be a risk of more use of fertilizers, more contamination like it is happening in the dairy sector, sir? How will we control that?
No, dairy sector, there's not much of a contamination.
No, sir. Large use of urea, and there are allegations of like mistreatment of cows and dairy animals. I'm not sure how true that is, but that is what we hear a lot of times. So with more privatization,
These problems are not because of the dairy cooperatives. It is in spite of the dairy cooperative, you can say.
okay.
Okay, but in the case of the agricultural products, the government had been taking a lot of initiative to tell the farmers that don't go after urea alone, but the government had come up with the nutrient-based subsidy to remove the over dependence on urea.
Nano urea also, yes, sir.
Urea and also need encouragement, but it is N, P, and K and the micronutrients. Every nutrient needs to be promoted. But the farmers, unfortunately, farmers are not well educated about it. It's again a failure, I would say, of the agricultural departments or the extension departments, which are not telling the farmers that over dependence on urea will only increase the leaf part of the crop, not the seed part of the crop.
Yes, sir. There is need for comprehensive overhaul and synergies at all levels.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
There is failure on our part, on part of we civil servants also, that we are not really helping the farmers. The agricultural universities have failed to transfer the technology from the lab to the land. They also failed. Everybody, there is a failure on every part of agriculture. But we have to come out of it, and the 3 laws were meant to be a starting point for that.
Okay, sir.
Because good private sector companies can definitely help the farmers. Of course, there have to be laws against their exploitation. Farmers should be protected against exploitation, but there is no alternative, but to have private sector involvement in R&D, in marketing, storage, everything.
Yes, sir. Government cannot support.
Government can play
Facilitating
as a facilitator, and also as a they can set examples. They can set examples. Like even in the case of dairy, though it was started by the Amul, but now it is practically run as a government program. The operation is practically a government program. So government can definitely show the way, but it has to be done by private sector.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, there are no questions. Then I'll go to the next topic. It is electoral.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yes. Any question?
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask consensus that the Adatiyas in the API store to create such issues, because the farmer is innocent. He is most of the times unaware of what exactly the laws are and how they would end up being. So, can we talk of designing some mechanism to root out the middlemen in this process?
The only way out is that the political parties should reach out to the farmers in the rest of the country and convince them that these laws are in their interest. In fact, these laws were demanded by the farmers at one time. There was an agitation in Delhi. I don't remember the year. It was in the early 2000s. There was an agitation by the farmers. They were asking for these laws. They were demanding these laws. But then it was the entire agitation was later on hijacked by some vested interests. I don't want to go into the politics of it, but you all know very well that how the entire agitation was hijacked by certain group of people. And the entire country is suffering because of it.
So, sir, can we highlight this issue when asked upon it?
Definitely you should. Definitely you should. Please try to understand that these laws would have made a, in fact, after the Green Revolution in this late 60s, this would have been the another next Green Revolution if these three laws were implemented in the right spirit.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I had a question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, what are the linkages between the current demands of farmers and India's obligations towards WTO? How do we balance both, sir? If we can get some answers on that question.
It's I'm not an authority on this issue, but when somebody takes a class on international affairs, you can ask him also. But I can tell you from my limited knowledge that WTO mechanism has practically not helped India at all, because if we this is practically dictated by the developed countries, and because they have their own system of subsidizing the farmers without violating the WTO protocols. We are yet to do it. When government of India or the state governments give subsidy to the farmers, these are highlighted in the WTO. And naturally, government of India will be very keen that to ensure that the farmers get remunerative prices. And since we are not able to provide remunerative prices to the farmers, even through the MSP, we have to continue subsidy, at least in the case of two inputs. One is fertilizer and the other is electricity. These two subsidies we have to continue almost indefinitely. And these are always subjected to in WTO. So we have to come up with some mechanism of either finding some alternative to help the farmers without violating WTO requirements, or we have to keep on asking for exemption from WTO conditionalities. And that is what we are doing. The second route is what we are doing it. We continue to get the exemption, and because of India's power as an international, in the international power of India, we are able to continue getting the exemption, and nobody is going to take any action. But WTO, in any case, is a toothless organization, I would say, that it is not able to take action against anybody. Many countries are violating it, including us. There are a number of cases pending against India in the appellate courts, but nobody seems to be bothering it. For us, looking after the interest of the farmers is much more important, because and not only of the farmers, of the consumers also. And that is possible only if we continue the subsidies, direct and indirect subsidies, for an indefinite time. How we do it? We are doing it. In any case, we are doing it. We will continue to do it.
So just a brief follow-up, sir. So in the interview, can we make this point that we can extend direct income support to farmers at a larger scale to avoid WTO issues because it is not as trade restoring? Can we make this point, sir?
Yeah. Yes. The price support mechanism, the price deficiency mechanism payment, that is one way of doing it. That it will not be considered as a subsidy. When we get into the subsidy problem, then WTO's conditions will be there will be a problem for us. But this is one way of doing it. There may be other ways also. But how do we remove the fertilizer subsidy and electricity subsidy? It's a difficult thing for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
We
sir.
continue to do it, and hope that WTO will not be able to. Another thing which you can include in your answer, that since WTO is a multilateral trade agreement, and
Yes, sir.
since most of the countries are unhappy with the multilateral trade agreement, they are going for bilateral agreements now. India is also doing that. Bilateral agreement or limited agreement with in different regions, like RCEP, for example. These are the types of, these are practically alternatives to WTO. And we are also entering into bilateral agreements with many countries now. You might be reading in the newspapers about bilateral agreement where our Prime Minister goes, or some foreign dignitary comes to India, we are entering into bilateral agreements. And that is all in a way overriding the WTO protocols.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, shall we take a break for 10 minutes? Because I must take a break. We'll meet up. We'll meet at 8:30. Okay. And continue. Electoral bonds we'll discuss at 8:30. Okay. Please don't log out. You can continue. You can continue to remain logged in, but you can, if you want to have dinner or if you want to have a tea break, you can have. But I need a 10 minutes break. Shall we continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to the next topic, electoral bonds. Electoral bonds, you know why it has become a current topic, though it has been a current topic for the last 4 or 5 years. So in addition to the present issue, that is the Supreme Court verdict, you should also know why the electoral bonds happened to come. What was the reason for introducing electoral bonds, and why the Supreme Court decided to stay the operation, to discontinue the operation of electoral bonds. So that background, unless you are familiar with it, you may not be able to have a good discussion in your interview. Of course, you know that the Supreme Court had struck down the electoral bond scheme. Now, why did the government come up with the electoral bonds? That is something which I'm not reading the present slide. That I hope you can read it yourself, because this is something which is appearing in the news these days. So I just summarized it. Why did the government come up with the electoral bonds scheme at all? Now, before this scheme was introduced, there was a facility for the individuals and the companies to make donations to political parties. Giving donation to political parties has never been frowned upon in our country, because everybody knows that political parties do need funding by individuals and corporate sector. So it is an accepted thing. But then there was one rider there, that if the contribution exceeds 20,000 rupees, then it has to be reported to the Election Commission, and Election Commission will publish the details in the website. So the name of the political party, the name of the person or company who has given this donation, that will be published in the Election Commission's website. And now it was found that in spite of the facilities available to the public to give donations, most of the people prefer to give donations in cash. And naturally, the reason is that most of the cash is black money. So people prefer to give cash, and many political parties collected hundreds of crores through small donations. And they even, when some income tax inquiry started, investigation started, they even told the income tax authority that it was all given as donation below 20,000 rupees, small donations. But the whole amount came into hundreds of crores. It was difficult to understand how anybody could give such a large amount in cash unless they have black money. So it was very obvious that elections were funded by black money. So Sharon Jaitley, who was the finance minister at that time, he came up with, I think it was in 2017, that he came up with the electoral bonds scheme, where it was accepted that political parties will get donation from companies and individuals, but it has to be routed through a legal channel. And as far as possible, people should be allowed to make contributions to political parties using white money, not black money. Black money needs to be discouraged. So this scheme was introduced wherein the designated bank, in this case, only State Bank of India was designated. The government could have designated any other scheduled bank, but government designated only State Bank of India, some of the selected branches, to issue electoral bonds. And these electoral bonds were just like cash. Just like whether I am holding a 100 rupee note or somebody else holds it, the value is the same. But nobody is going to ask me that you have this is your 100 rupee note and it's not another person's. Whoever carries the note, he gets the benefit of that note. For him, that value exists. Similarly, in the case of electoral bonds also, whoever is carrying the electoral bond can encash it. So people were allowed to buy the electoral bonds from the bank, provided they fulfill the KYC norms. Their details will be known to the bank. You cannot buy except through check or bank transfer after disclosing your KYC details. So the source, the person or individual or the company who has purchased the electoral bond will be known to the bank. But what he does with that electoral bond, nobody would know. Either he can give it as a donation to a political party, or he can give it to a third party who will in turn make the payment to the political party. But once the political party gets the electoral bond, they have to encash it within 10 days or 15, I think within 15 days, I don't remember exactly whether 10 or 15 days, the political party will have to encash it. And naturally, the entire process will be audited and the report will go to the Election Commission also. So it was considered to be a transparent process because the source of money is known, who is giving the money, that is also known, but it's not necessary that these two can be linked easily. Who has purchased the electoral bond need not be the one who is giving the money to the political party. It can be a second party also. But the entire there is a trail available, and in case somebody wants to find out who has given the donation, that will be possible. But then the scheme provided for anonymity. It something like a guarantee. It was told to the people that your details will not be divulged. You can get the benefit of anonymity. So you can make the donations to whichever party you want to give donations to. So it was expected that the process would be a little more transparent than the earlier system of cash payment. But when we read the judgment of the Supreme Court, at least the Supreme Court is saying that the remedy was worse than the malady. There was a malady, no doubt about that, and government found out a remedy for that, but Supreme Court says that the remedy was not good enough. You can have your own views on that. In any case, everybody will agree on one point, that there is need for transparency in political donations. There is another, I'm just giving certain points. I'm not coming to any conclusions. You can draw your own conclusions, but I will give you enough material for you to answer the questions or to enter into a discussion in the UPC board. If a question comes, many of you are likely to face this question. Another issue which is highlighted by some people is that the money most of the money would go to the ruling party. And this has been the situation earlier also. Even when cash payment was there, even then it was always the ruling party which benefited more from the cash payment, because why should anybody pay to a losing party? Because nobody is going to get any benefit from the party in opposition. Of course, they can say that when the opposition can say that when we come to power, we will help you. But that time also the donor can say that, okay, that time we will pay you. But most of the time, there is a quid pro quo arrangement involved. Without quid pro quo, why should anybody make a payment to a political party? They expect something. They may be expecting some kind of a return from that investment. They may be expecting some protection. They may be expecting some facilitation. Something has to be a quid pro quo. Otherwise, nobody will be interested in making a donation to a political party. So naturally, it's a ruling party which will benefit more from any such donation, whether it is cash donation or donation through electoral bonds. And this has been happening. In fact, when we go through the statistics, we find that the present ruling party was getting more share before the electoral bond system came. But at that time, the ruling party was getting around 80 to 85% of the total. These are all figures available with the Election Commission of India. But after the electoral bond came, the share of BJP came down to around 60% or less than that. So that way, it's not necessary that electoral bond system has favored the present ruling party, but ruling party in general gets benefited. Even a ruling party in a state will get more funds than the opposition party. So this is something which we all know, and common sense also tells us that this is going to be the system in future also. Another important point which you must remember is that this is practically not an electoral bond. This is not the government's view, but government introduced it as an electoral bond. But practically, what is happening, that electoral bond means that money is to be spent for election financing. But you all know that election financing, there are limits. Candidates, there are limits to which a candidate can spend money during elections. For example, in the case of, I think the present limit is 95 lakhs for a Lok Sabha election. One candidate can spend only, and I may be wrong, but this is my understanding. You can check up yourself. As my understanding is that the present limit is 95 lakhs. And in the case of state assemblies, it is 45 lakhs. So that figure is immaterial. It's in any case less than 1 crore. Now, the present ruling party has got some more than 6,000 crores. The opposition party has got more than 1,000 crores. So even if the election of all the Lok Sabha seats are financed, as per the limits allowed to them by Election Commission, still we will not reach a figure more than 1,000 crores. Even not more than 500 crores. So the money is not going only for elections. So this is practically not an electoral bond. It is a contribution to the political party, which the political party can use for elections and also for other expenditure other than elections. So this is another point which you can keep in mind. Now, though there is another point is that though there is a guarantee of anonymity, that is not absolute guarantee. Because as I have already explained, State Bank of India is aware of the details of the donor, person who has purchased the bond. State Bank of India is all the political parties are also aware of the party who has made them the payment. And when they give the returns, they may not mention the name of the donor, but it is traceable. So there is no absolute anonymity. It is an anonymity only in principle, but not in practice. And Supreme Court also said that there can be other ways of funding elections. There can be more transparent methods, less intrusive measures can be there to curb black money. Certainly, there can be much better mechanisms. Even election funding, there are many systems which are being talked about. And many developed countries have this mechanism of even financing the elections, and they can, the donors do not mind getting themselves identified with a party. All these systems are available in many countries. So people, the corporate sector, many of the companies are branded as belonging to a certain party or allied with a certain party. Nobody minds it. But in India, it's a very sensitive matter, and that is probably the reason why the anonymity principle was thought of. Otherwise, there is no reason why any company should be afraid of getting aligned with one party or the other. Probably they may be afraid that if the opposition party comes to power, they may create problems in their functioning. Okay, these are the proceedings in the Supreme Court. You can go through it. And another issue which you should be prepared to discuss is that when the scheme was introduced, it was introduced as a part of the budget. It was introduced as a money bill. Now, this can be a controversial issue, that whether it should have been treated, it could have been treated as a money bill because it was practically not fulfilling the requirements of a money bill. But since it was made part of the budget, it could be described as a money bill. That is how the government got away with it. But in any case, that was not a part of the challenge. Challenge was mainly in the form of transparency and things like that. Okay, now if you have any points to discuss, we can discuss.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes.
That as the Supreme Court has removed the anonymity clause, clause 7, clause
Yes.
4,
Yes.
so it give more rights to post-poll harassment.
I didn't get it. What is the question? It leads to what?
Leads to post-poll harassment. I mean,
Yes. No, this is the reason why the anonymity was guaranteed. That the donor need not be worried about the future. But as I already mentioned, there is no absolute anonymity. If another party comes to power, they can definitely trace the trail of the donations. So if they want to use the government agencies to harass a donor, it is still possible. And that is the reason why the opposition party is also getting the donation. The donors are very clever people. they will not like to displease the opposition party, because they know that the opposition party can come to power sometime. So to keep them in good humor, they will make a donation to the opposition also, and maybe even tell them that as and when you come to power, we will increase the donations to your party. So they don't take any chances. Anything else?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, my doubt is that the anonymity clause was there, but it did ensure the clean money being injected into electoral funding.
That purpose has been served. Yes, because it is all the money is accountable money. But I'll just try to tell you another thing, that see, I have given the statistics about the previous slide. This has given the money which has gone to BJP, Congress, and Trinamool Congress. I have not given the details about the other parties, because that's much smaller. But most of the other parties, they have not got it through the electoral bonds. They have been getting it through cash payments. Most of the other parties, including Communist Party of India. Communist Party of India, they refuse to accept electoral bonds, and they prefer to go by the traditional method of collection money, which they call bucket collection. You know what is bucket collection? They are happy with that. And when we go with to people with a bucket, there is total anonymity, but there is no guarantee that it is not black money. So transparency was to a large extent facilitated by electoral bonds, but as the Supreme Court said, the remedy is not better than the malady. It does have its own problems. I am also not fully convinced that the remedy was the black money was completely removed. It's not possible also, because then the person who is buying the electoral bond need not be the donor. Donor can be a person who has purchased the electoral bond from the party who purchased it from SBI. And that third party need not be a genuine party. And third party may be using their black money. We don't know. We don't know how the transactions take place. There is transparency to a large extent, but it does not completely eradicate black money.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, without electoral bonds, there will be void in electoral funding for upcoming elections. So, what are the alternatives available for?
Yes, they can collect money as according to the, but the limit has been reduced to 2,000 now. Limit
Okay,
is
sir.
from 20,000. This again you can check up. My understanding is that it has been reduced to 2,000. You can check up yourself, and they can always go for the bucket collection.
Okay, sir.
So I have a doubt.
Yes.
So while discussing about this electoral bonds, there are articles which quote regarding electoral trusts.
Yes.
What are those, and are they still existing? And
Electoral
in
trust,
what?
yes, that is possible. In India also it is there, but it's not very popular, because there the money will be distributed among various political parties. The electoral, you can make a payment to the electoral trust, but the electoral trust will in turn distribute the money among various parties in accordance with their number of seats in the Lok Sabha or Assembly. So nobody's really happy about it in India.
Okay.
But that facility can be used, but I don't think it will be popular in India.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So what about state funding of election? Should we support it?
State funding of election is a very good idea, but are we mature enough to do that? That's a big question. Using your political science background, you can think about it, It's certainly a very good idea, and definitely Election Commission will be supporting it. Election Commission has been supporting it, but then I don't know whether the political parties will be happy about it. It's just like the electoral trust also, same thing. Electoral trust is also something like a state funding. Instead of the government creating the body and a government financing it, the government is taking, in the case of electoral trust, the government will be taking money from the public and distributing it. Either way, it is the same. Ultimately, it is the same thing. The political party which comes to power will benefit more, and that may not be liked by the other political parties. But we don't know what mechanism can be arrived at. If it is a uniform distribution of funding, suppose there are, say, one party has 100 candidates, another party has 200 candidates. So proportionate to the number of candidates fielded by the party, if the funding is to take place, then that can also be misused. Then what about independent candidates? How do we deal with serious independence and less serious independence? All these issues could come when we come for state funding. We are not mature enough to do that. That is my feeling. You can think about it, and I have, in fact, it would have been an ideal situation. It would have worked, but we are still not in an ideal situation.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Any other issue? Shall we go back to the?
Sir, I wanted to say something.
Yes.
So all the alternatives that have been suggested so far, for instance, state funding or the electoral trust system, both of
Yes.
these have a similar problem. That is, they're going to cement the party in power. So I think Hungary tried a similar experiment of
Yes,
state funding or
that
something.
will always be there. That will always be there, except in a two-party system. If it is a
Right.
two-party system, then like in America, practically it is a two-party system. Though there are smaller parties, but it is practically a two. Everybody knows that either Republican Party will come to power or the Democratic Party will come to power. So they will align themselves with either party and keep giving the donations. But again, in India, that is not likely, because we have a multi-party system. We have so many parties that even national party themselves are so much large in number that this complaint about favoring the ruling party will always come there, and it is not going to be proportionate, because ruling party will get maybe 70-80% of the total payment, and the other parties will always complain.
Sir, so in essence, aren't the alternatives even worse than the system that we have right now?
Every alternative solution is a problem in itself.
Right.
Whatever alternatives you come up with, there will be a problem. So we had to go by the least damaging solution.
Right. Okay. So
that is why the government came up with the electoral bonds, but that also not proved to be a financial.
okay, sir. So a fair answer to this in the actual interview would be like, is it fair to say that there's no solution to the problem?
Solution is that the democracy should become more mature.
Okay. Okay.
That is only we had to wait. We are still in the nascent state of the democracy. We have yet to grow. Our democratic systems are not foolproof.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Okay, we'll go back to the first slide. Now I have got some feedback from you. You want to discuss cash-based census, age of consent, and limitation issue. These three we will take first, and then if time permits, we can go to the other issues also. Let me first go to cash-based. These are my slide is not much, only one or two slides on each issue. So we will discuss. We will spend about 10 minutes on each. caste-based census, you know the background that the Bihar government has come up with the, I don't want to go into the details, you can go through this thing. I am only interested in telling you the implications of the caste-based census and why many parties are not in favor of that. No ruling party at the center will be in favor of that, because it will be opening a Pandora's box. Please go through the slide immediately, and then they will go to the next slide, and then we can have the discussion. There is need for knowing the approximate strength of various castes, because we need to plan for their upliftment. We need to have evolved programs for their welfare. All these things are accepted. But whether we should know the exact number, that is an issue which you can think about. Even without knowing the exact number, planning can be done. And we had a socio-economic caste census of 2011. Though it did not give us a 100% information about various castes and the number of people, and government also did not publish the details, but this data is available with the government. And government is using that data even for enforcing the Food Security Act. This data was used. And for the Ayushman Bharat program also, this data was used. So government has been using this data of 2011 for planning purposes. But exact number of each caste may not be available and need not be available, because even without that, it is possible to plan. And whichever party comes to power at the center will hold the same view that conducting a full caste census, especially except the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, will not be feasible. Administratively, it will not be feasible. Because if you look at the details of the problems faced by the commission for subclassification of OBCs, see, they have not been able to, they had taken a lot of time to come up with their reports, and even now, what action the government will take on that subclassification report, we don't know. It's going to be very, very big problems, because we have so many thousands, hundreds and thousands of castes in India, and many people don't even reveal their caste identity so easily, because if somebody is interested in getting benefit of reservation, they may even give a wrong details about their caste to the census authorities. So getting accurate information about caste is almost impossible in a country like India. Initially, the Supreme Court had refused to intervene, but then later on, the government of Bihar was allowed to go ahead with the publication of the essential details of the report, and they published it also. And the figures are quite revealing that we are not giving adequate representation to the OBCs and EBCs. That fact has been brought out by the survey. But this was already known to everybody, that 27% is not the strength of the backward classes. That everybody knew, even at the time of the Mandal agitation also, that everybody knew that 27% is not the strength of OBCs in India. And we have a very old census figure of, I think, 1931 or so, where the number of backward classes was found to be more than 50%. So 27% does not give adequate representation to the OBC. This is something which is already known to everybody. This is not a new thing. But why 27%? Because that time the Indira Sahni judgment was there, and government was not allowed to go beyond the 50% limit of reservation. And that is why it had to be restricted to 27%. Now, if the OBCs are to be given proportionate representation, then it is not possible without exceeding the 50% limit. And that is bound to create social tensions in our country, which no government will be inclined to accept. They don't want another Mandal agitation or something even worse than that in the days to come. So no ruling party will, of course, state ruling parties may allow it, but at the center, definitely no party, whichever party comes to power, will not favor a caste-based census. Okay, any questions on this? I hope you have gone through the slide. A lot of material is there, but it's all known to you. Yes.
So should we be then against caste reservations?
No. Again, we are not mature enough to. Our society has not become mature enough to do away with reservation.
And what about caste census? Can we oppose it?
No. I said I will not give you an answer. I will not give. I am only giving you material for answering. It's up to you to either favor reservation or not favor reservation. You can favor caste-based census or go against it. I have no problem. But my only job is to give you enough material to answer this question either way. Your views, you can hold on to your views. I don't have any particular view. I'm not imposing my views on you. I not even disclose my views. I don't want to do it that. But you can have your views on it. But whatever view you hold, you should be able to substantiate it with material. That material I am giving you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir?
Yes, please.
Sir, my question is, how is the socio-economic caste census different from this caste census that was conducted in Bihar?
Socio-economics, that was a survey, not a census. Of course, they also went from door to door and did the survey, but it was not the type of enumeration which is done in a census. Here you can see this socio-economic caste census 2011. Though a comprehensive door-to-door enumeration across the country, sorry, I think something is missing in this. It was not exactly like a normal census. It was a survey, because the government was not interested in knowing who belongs to what caste. That was not the intention of the government. They only wanted to know how many people belong to so and so caste. That was the only thing. So the data is not. There may not be a detailed list of individuals and households as in the case of caste, as in the case of a normal census. But the figures are available with the state government and with the central government for planning purposes. That was the limited purpose of that survey.
So why government is not releasing data of socioeconomic caste and should it be released?
It should not be released because again that will lead to another mandal type of agitation. I think you are not born at that time, but we have seen the damage the country's social fabric suffered because of the mandal agitation. It made the people into different categories. People started fighting. We already have communal problems in our country, so why should we add caste-based conflict also into that? It happened once, and we have learned a very bitter lesson from that. And no government will like to have another agitation on grounds of caste. But why do we need it? We have the data. We all know how many people belong to which caste. Data is already available for government to deal with. Why should individuals have it? And if you are interested in doing a research, government will make it available to you. Provided it's a bona fide research, government data will be available. But it is not in the public domain. Okay, more questions? Shall we go to the next topic? Okay, I'll go back. We'll go to age of consent. Age of consent is a very interesting topic because it is related to many other legal issues. It is related to POXO Act, it is related to Juvenile Justice Act, it is related to marriages, the law dealing with the marriages. It affects many other issues. So age of consent, you should have a fairly detailed information about the present system of deciding age of consent. Because there are different definitions of age of consent in our country, and that is creating problems, and government is trying to rectify that. Hindu Marriage Act, Christian Marriage Act, and Special Marriage Act, all these three acts, they set a minimum age of 18 for women and 21 years for men. But in the case of Muslim community, these laws are not applicable, and that is one of the reasons why government was talking about the Uniform Civil Code. For Muslims, the criterion is attaining puberty, but that is not defined in any law. Various religious leaders interpret it in different ways, but the general consensus is that when the bride or groom attains the age of 15, they are considered to be adults. Then there have been some legal cases on this issue. The National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, NCPCR, they had once approached the Supreme Court against, there was a ruling of the Punjab and Haryana High Court. There was in a habeas corpus petition that was a girl below the age of 15 was married to a person much older than her. I think he was around 25, 26 or so. And because it was affecting the child's right, because she was considered a child by the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. And they came up with a habeas corpus petition to allow the girl, bridegroom had gone to the Punjab and Haryana High Court. Punjab and Haryana High Court allowed the petition and allowed the boy, not boy, actually man, to marry that minor girl. The National Commission challenged it in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court on 13 January 23 stated that the judgment of the Punjab and Haryana High Court in the case of Javed versus State of Haryana, which held that a Muslim girl aged 15, by that time she was 15, and and it was treated as a one-time case, just a one-time application and not a precedent to be quoted anywhere else. They allowed this marriage, but said that this will not be treated as a precedent. So there 15 years, since she had attained 15 years, she was allowed to continue her marriage. Now, there are various laws dealing with the definition of minor and adult. POCSO Act, there are it does not recognize consent for sexual activity by minors. But then there are other laws which allow it. Karnataka High Court in 2013 held that no Indian citizen can claim immunity from the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act on the grounds of belonging to a certain community, certain religion. That was something like a enforcement of a uniform civil code in the case of minors. Ministry of Women and Child Development made a futile attempt to raise the age from 18 to 21 in the case of girls and make it uniform across religions, but that law was never even brought before this. It was discussed but not followed up. Now you must have some idea about the legal provisions dealing with the age of consent. Section 375 IPC, it deals with rape. I have given here the relevant parts of that section, not the full section, but relevant parts. It says a man is said to commit rape who, except in the case, there are some exceptions mentioned there, and there it says under 16 years of age. The girl, if the girl is under 16 years of age, even if the intercourse is with her consent, it will be treated as rape. But in the case of a couple who are already married, allowed by the community organizations that the marriage has been allowed. In that case, they are living as man and wife. In that case, even if the girl is below the age of 16, even if she's not below 15, then it is not considered rape. It's not considered a marital rape, even if she is below the age of 16. So there is a contradiction among various laws there. And 375 itself gives an exception because this is following the, and actually later on Supreme Court in the 2023 order, Supreme Court had raised it to 18 years. That if the girl is below the age of 18 years, if and it was in fact there was a lot of opposition to this ruling, but because some communities wanted the 15 to be the legal age, but Supreme Court had raised it to 18, which means that below the age of 18, even if she is married to a man, that will be considered a rape. He would be considered to have raped her according to the definition of the Supreme Court. There are some other rulings, Supreme Court rulings you should be familiar with. It will help you in your discussions. At Independent Thought versus Union of India, this is a 2017 act. It pointed out that there is incongruity between IPC and the POCSO Act. I already mentioned that there should be a uniform definition. Then go through the details. Details are already discussed, but the wordings of the ruling you can go through. Okay, next. This is the please read it. This gives you the complete gist of the ruling of the Supreme Court in this case, and this is very important because this is practically opening the doors for discussion on the age of consent. Please go through it. LCI is Law Commission of India. Okay, I'm going to the. Okay, now any discussion on this? Any questions? If there are no questions, then we can go to the next topic. And that will be the final topic. We'll finish with that. That is delimitation issue. I will not have time for the remaining issues. Delimitation issue, the only issue which you should think about and understand is again, this is going to open a Pandora's box. This will create an unnecessary north-south rift in our country because it is felt that this delimitation issue is going to favor some states which have not done well in improving the social status of the people of that state. It is also skewed in favor of states which have not implemented the family planning measures adequately. Because as on today, the 1971 census is considered the yardstick for deciding the number of constituencies for the delimitation purpose. Delimitation is a constitutional provision, and every time the government has to go for a delimitation exercise, government will have to notify a new commission. There is a commission at present working, but that has very limited scope. That was practically meant for the delimitation of the J&K. But when the government wants delimitation after the 2024 election for the after the 2026 that is the final limitation of the provision right now, it is delimitation based on the 1971 census will lapse by 2026. Because it has been extended several times. It has been extended. 1976, Indira Gandhi government brought it that 1971 census will be used for determining the number of seats, and 2026, 2002, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government extended the date of expiry to 2026. Now in 2026, unless the present government extends it further, the limitation will end there. And after that, delimitation, a fresh delimitation will have to be conducted. And if a fresh delimitation is to be conducted, then the government will have to appoint a new delimitation commission. A notification has to be issued for a new delimitation commission. Now that means that if the present delimitation commission will not have jurisdiction for that because it is not notified for that purpose. That is being created for a different purpose. Now, if the 1971 basis is replaced by, say, 2021 census, which is yet to take place, say, let us assume that it will be conducted in 2025. And then in the next parliament elections due in 2029, probably the delimitation can take place before that. And if the 1971 census is not followed in that, some states which have done very well in controlling the population will suffer badly. And a study conducted by an NGO, they had that is the last paragraph. It had said that the 4 northern states, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and UP, would collectively gain 22 seats out of 545, whereas the 4 southern states, Andhra, Kerala, Telangana, and Tamil Nadu, would lose 17 seats. Now this is going to create a north-south divide. Should we go for that, or should we again think like a mature democracy and come up with a solution which will be acceptable to large majority of people in our country? That is an issue which you can think about. Again, I don't have answers. You can have your own answers, and the material which I have presented here, you can use it for that purpose. Now, if you have any questions, last set of questions we can consider, otherwise we'll stop now.
So can we say that we should increase the seats in the parliament so that southern seats are not affected?
That is one solution available. Yes, that is one solution available. But then again, it's a disproportionate increase can take place in that case. So if we increase proportionately, there may not be a problem. But if we change the basis from 71 to 2021, naturally it will create inequalities. So whether we should go for that, of course, the new parliament building was designed keeping that in mind, that the number of seats may have to be extended even up to 800. There is no problem. We have seats in the parliament. That's not a problem. But whether we should do it or not, that is a big issue. Please think about it. Any more questions? Okay, since it is 9:30, we will stop here. It's difficult for me to continue beyond this. So thank you all. Raju ji, hai kya? Who is the host? Okay, I'll stopping the.
So thank you so much for this amazing lecture, sir. Thank you. It will be very helpful, sir. Thank you.
I'll share it. I'll send it to Raju ji and Bhuvanesh ji. You can collect it from him. Of course, there is nothing new for all of you. All of you have a lot of material, but in a concise form, I have tried to put it in. Rest of the details you can have in, except the 2 new issues, electoral bonds and the other one, MSP. The material is there in the current affairs ready reckoner already with you. So for these 2 issues, I will share this slide with you. Okay, thank you all.
Sir.
Good night.